All right. Here we go. Last class, towards the end, we were trying to understand how we balance processing, properties, performance, and the price. And processing is all about ensuring the components of rubber compound are evenly, homogeneously dispersed. And what is the machinery we use? The components of rubber compound, they come in three different forms: solid, liquid, and friable powders. The liquids are not only as processing oil, certain tackifiers also come with the low boiling solids. So during the course of mixing, they melt and get into the rubber. Stearic acid, for example, at room temperature it is solid. The moment it is added to the rubber, because of the shearing of a macromolecule, considerable heat is generated, and that is responsible for melting most of the powdery additives. And what you see here, there are it describes the four stages of the rubber behavior on the two-roll mill. So this is otherwise known as a open mill mixing. The two rolls, they are said to operate at a definite differential velocity. That is what we call as a friction ratio. Friction ratio is just about 1:1.15 in many cases. In select cases, it increases to 1.2. A higher friction ratio is required to handle the components that are difficult to discuss. We will come to all that. So in the region 1, the rubber enters a gap between the rolls. So the gap, as we said the last class, is known as a nip. So this nip is where the shearing of rubber stock is happening. In the region 2, once the rubber has entered, it forms a smooth layer over one of the rolls. We call it as a banding. We call it as a band. Right. And between the rolls, just above the nip, we see the stalk of rubber rolling. That we call as the rolling bank. So band, rolling bank. And this rolling bank is necessary so that when we add the rubber components or the components of the rubber compound, rubber accepts. After all, the mixing is all about preparing a homogeneous compound. All right. In the region 3, what we see is the band is getting separated from the roll. This is a common feature in certain rubbers. Butyl rubber, for example, and butyl rubber, the banding is not good. This is what we call as a bagginess. Bagging, you see, bagginess, or it behaves like a sag. It does not cling to the rubber roll, and this separation, uh, known as a bagginess, can cause a certain instability, mixing instability. That limits the quality of the dispersion. What is our understanding of dispersion? The rubber, the components of the rubber compound added to the rubber in the ratio, whether we sample the entire quantity or at the micro level, the relative proportion must be the same as the formula quantity. So that is what we call as the dispersion. What is the role of process aid or a process oil? The As we saw in the beginning, some of the additives are a fine powder. They come with a larger surface area, and we have problem in respect of wetting. Right? We have problem in respect of wetting of the this powder by the rubber. So, in order to enable the wetting, there are two concurrent approaches. One is listen very carefully. When we do the shearing, so the thermal softening happens, and there is a considerable openness in the rubber matrix, and this powder can interact. So that is a physical approach, purely physical approach. In case of a rubber like NR, which undergo reduction in the molecular weight, and short chains are formed. This short chains are what they do? They add to the surface energy of the rubber. So the powdery additives they are at a very high surface energy, and the short chains in the rubber, they also add to the surface energy. So there is an energy balancer, and as a result, wetting happens. So this is understandable. What is the role of process aid or a process oil? They rather interact with the rubber chain and soften the rubber. If the shearing is not yielding the desired result, the process aid or a process oil, they interact with the rubber chains and they kind of make the rubber suitable to accept the powdery additives. This process aid or a process oil, they also interact with the powdery additives. As a result, their surface energy is reduced. In case of the rubber, surface energy is enhanced. In case of the powder additive, surface energy are reduced. So there is a point at which these two match and we get a homogeneous mixer within a reasonable time and the energy of mixing. The energy of mixing. So for this to happen, shearing is necessary. Shearing should not be to the level where it can degrade the rubber. One. And two, shearing also adds to the energy of mixing. Right? Shearing adds to the energy of mixing. And most of the mechanical energy, they get converted to thermal energy. Therefore, open mill mixing becomes difficult because of the heat generated. So you will have to strike a balance between the quality of mixer, time of mixer, energy of mixer, and the thermal content of the mix. Right? So that way, setting the friction ratio becomes crucial. All right. So in the figure 4.3, what you see is the flow lines of the rubber chain. So what you see in the vertical, there is a dotted line running. That is the midpoint in the nip. Okay. So the rubber chains, they enter and they escape at the other end. Right. At somewhere you notice there is a backflow. Right. You see the line of shear forces. So yeah, at some location there is a reversal. Okay, instead of rubber entering the nip, it escapes from the nip. Okay, this is the velocity profile in a symmetric. Symmetric meaning the rolls are rotating at the same surface velocity. Okay, what is about the asymmetric? This is what we encounter in uh, open mill, rubber mixing mill. Okay. So what you see here, there is no backflow. All right. And the flow lines, as we see, they also converge. All right. They also converge, and the bank, rolling bank, is also generated smoothly. Okay. So this is the difference between the need for friction ratio. Right. This describes the need for the friction ratio. And an open miller, this is a typical the geometry, and you see this bold horizontal line that is at the midpoint of the nip. Okay, and the if you look at the velocity profile, the rubber chains on the rubber roll, right? They travel at a reduced velocity as compared to away from the flow lines, away from the bowl. Some call it as a roll. Let us stick to the roll because bowl is used for the calendar. So calendaring is another process. We will come to that. Right. So friends, the this behavior velocity profiler, it helps the rubber to stay on the roll and continue the mixing. This is a normal situation. But for rubber like butyl, as we said earlier, bagginess is a problem. All right. So, friends, in order to uh, make use of the rubber processing effectively, process aids are necessary. Right? Open mill mixing. And you may ask, why we insist on the open mill mixing? So there has to be an alternate, that is the internal mixing. Right? And open mill mixing, we said for natural rubber, the controlled reduction has to happen. The atmospheric oxygen is able to react with the free radical generated, and that takes care of the peptiding. Whereas for the internal mixer, that is not sufficient. So we'll have to add chemical peptides. Okay, chemical peptides. And this chemical peptides, the quantity is about 0.1 to 0.2 pHr. So you can imagine, so for every 100 gram or 100 kg, all right. So the quantity of peptizer, and it is the 100 for every 100 parts, 0.1, not 100th, 1000. 1000. So that demands the need for quality of dispersion. All right. So this is uh, this particular the four figures we see here amply describe the need for a process oil, right? So the point here is process oil, process aid. What is the difference, right? So that has to be understood. Process oil and the process aid, right? Process oil and the process. I type here process oil, process aid, right? What does a process aid do? Most of the process aids, they are dual functionality. Some part of the process aid specifically interacts with the rubber. The other part interacts with the filler. All right. So that is simple, straightforward. Process aid are targeted. So process aid are targeted. Aid are targeted or targeting targeting the sites in the active sites in the rubber, right? In the rubber, without, this is important, without weakening, right? Weakening is mechanically weakening, all right? Targeting the active sites in the rubber without weakening, and the high energy, high surface energy filler. Okay, that is a process aid. Process oil, on the other hand, you don't have such a reaction specificity, right? It gets the filler and it generates some short chains in the rubber. Filler wetting and generating short chains in the rubber, both happen, right? And both help in this powdery additive get into the rubber. So the difference is process aid, they are of a limited quantity. Okay, about 2 parts or 3 parts. Okay, whereas the process oil quantity can range anywhere between 5 parts, 10 parts, 20 parts, etc. Listen very carefully. This process oil up to 10 parts, they help in their mixing. Once you increase the oil content, what happens is they also affect the mechanical properties. They affect the mechanical properties. All right. Like low temperature flexibility, rebound resilience, tensile strength, modulus, etc. Okay, you follow. The process oil, uh, they they compare with the process aid, and they also contrast. Process aid, on the other hand, they have a specific role between the rubber and the filler. What kind of filler? That is another interesting question. So the fillers are mostly carbon black. So the carbon black of N 300, 200 and 100 seals. You don't require, for N500 you may not require, but some formulations contain for 500. 700 you don't require at all because they are all coarser film. Alright? So you must know this difference of process oil and process feed. Okay? So that is about the rubber mixing, how the process aids health, right? And what about other processing? So we said extrusion and calendering. Calendering is all about generating a film of uniform surface feature as well as the cross section. Uniform surface feature and the cross section, namely the thickness. Alright, and for this to happen, the compound should have certain solid character, thermoplasticity, solid character and thermoplasticity. How it is possible? Just a plain rubber and the gum compound is not going to make the film stronger. We require some particulate fillers that may make the rubber strong enough to form a film. You understand? So film formation largely enabled by the filler. Don't forget this. Rubber on its own, with a few exceptions like NR, CR, all other rubbers, film formation of a gum. Gum means what? Without film. Without filler, film formation is not all that good. Alright. So you require filler. So fillers, they help in imparting certain mechanical properties after cross-linking, and during the course of processing, like calendering, film formation. And in case of the extrusion is what? It is the escaping through the escaping through a narrow opening. We call it as a die. Okay? So die, the extrusion die. So the flow through the die, extrusion, I write here, extrusion die, right? And the calendar film. Calendar extrusion die. So die as a term implies the compound exiting the die, exiting the die will assume the shape of the opening, shape of the opening, and the opening could be a cylindrical or an annular tube or a solid cross section. It can be any shape for the matter, but the shape should be that of the extrusion type. So definitely the compound has to process very well. So calendar, we said the fillers play a vital role. What about the extrusion? Extrusion also, right? Fillers play a role because to assume the geometry or the shape of the opening, the compound should have a certain solid character. That is possible only in the presence of a filler. Right? Going a step further, the softening will happen at a particular temperature. The moment the compound comes out of the die, what happens? The temperature is reduced. Passing through the die, it is at a little higher temperature, right? So one has to balance closely the viscoelasticity, right? So the compound should be elastic enough to uh, retain the shape of the die opening and soft enough to pass through the die smoothly. You understand? And shear rate plays a critical role. Shear rate, right here. The shear rate in calendar film will be of the order of 100 second inverse, whereas extrusion it is of the order of 1000 second inverse. And in case of open mill mixing, two rule open mill mixing, it will be about 10 to 100 second inverse. Okay. In case of the injection molding, rubber injection molding, so why I quote the shear rate, I will tell you. Injection molding shear rate will be about 10,000 second inverse, right? And you must have studied or you will be studying rubber compounds are largely uh, non-Newtonian, non-linearly viscoelastic, non-linear viscoelastic, non-Newtonian, non-linear viscoelastic. These are the key words. Just keep them at the back of your mind. You can explore further. All right. So the point is the viscosity of all, whether it is open mill mixing or internal mixing, calendaring, extrusion, injection molding, compression, transfer molding, they are all controlled by the viscosity. This viscosity, they are strongly controlled by the shear rate. Understand? So that is why the shear rate is specified. And this shear rate dependent, otherwise qualified as a non-Newtonian. Right? Fine. Viscosity is all about generating a film or extrudate or flow through the orifice in injection molding and run the molten stock runs through different routes and filling the cavity in case of the injection molding and so on. You follow? And for every what works well for calendaring, listen very carefully, need not work well for extrusion or injection. But the converse is true. What works for injection, extrusion will definitely work for calendar because the shear rate is less. Right. So the point here is the how we incorporate the rubber compound design to process well, right? One is balancing the filler oil dosage. Another is a process aid, okay? And the base polymer. So in case of the base polymer, listen very carefully the choice of the base polymer, and we said in case of the nitrile rubber, moly viscosity. I write here. Mooney viscosity. So often it is around 50 ml 1 plus 4 tested at a temperature of 100 degrees. Okay, this is common, all right? But there are rubbers that have a higher viscosity, different temperature. What you see in parenthesis, the bracket 1 plus 4, it describes a test duration. So the test duration need not be a preheating of 1 minute, test duration of 4 minutes. It could be 8 minutes in some cases. And L stands for the size of the rotor wheels. So L is a large rotor. In some cases, we use a small rotor. So it becomes a NS. All right. And 50 implies the reading from the Mooney viscometer. Right. So friends, if we are able to, this is to describe one of the parameters of the raw rubber, or the whether it is NR or a synthetic rubber, viscosity, in addition to the other functionality. So in case of the nitrile rubber, we said 34 ACL. That describes the moderately, it is, what shall I say, not medium, high medium. 34 ACN acrylonitrile, high medium 34. All right. So that is about the functionality. And in case of the SBR, the styrene content. Styrene content, you must have studied. Styrene content ranging between 23 mole percent to 25 mole percent. Meaning, if you take 100 monomer of the rubber, randomly, statistical average, you will have a 75 monomer from the butadiene, 25 monomer from the styrene. Okay. So that is about the SBR. In case of the polychloroprene rubber, we said W type. W type is the Mercaptan modified. And you have a peptizable sulfur modified. Peptizable sulfur modified, that non-crystallizable, very important. G type non-crystallizable, meaning even at a low temperature, it may not become stiffer. Of course, it is limited by the TG, right? Up to the TG, there is no question of stiffening. There is a W type where, depending on the cure system, it can stiffen. Okay? So you have problem in working with the W type. Otherwise, W type comes with the viscosity stabilized. And secondly, W type, it gives you consistent mechanical properties. Consistent mechanical properties. The G type sulfur modified peptizable, as I said, it goes well with the products that require film coating. Nylon and the polychloroprene rubber, best combination. Nylon fabric and polychloroprene. Where do we use for making the rubberized fabric? Rubberized fabric. Of course, rubberized fabric, nylon, and neoprene, polychloroprene G type. That is a sulfur model. Okay. So Mooney viscosity in most of the cases 50. In special cases, it could be higher. And the higher viscosity implies the weight average molecular weight is high. When do we require a high weight average? We need them for excellent mechanical properties. But we'll have to process them. So what do we do? So that time you go for the process aid. All right, process aid. And if the rubber can allow process oil, you explore process oil route also. As in the case of SBR 1712, SBR 1712 is a oil extended SBR. And EPDM, oil extended EPDM grades are quite popular these days. The rubber will have a very high molecular weight, but it will not process well. So what do you do? During the course of polymerization, you add the paraffinic oil, make it a oil extended, similar to SBR 1712. Okay. So friends, is that clear? Is that clear? Jayaraman? Jayaraman. I am going to open another file. Pradisha? Pradisha?
Sir?
Is that clear? I will open another file.
Okay, sir.
Well, we are going to discuss the rubber blends. Right? Rubber blends. Rubber blends are very common because from a single rubber, attaining the best set of properties is not that easy. So the compound designer looks at blending. Here in the table 1, it's about blend of NR, polybutadiene, and NIR. NIR you may have studied. If not, don't worry. It is similar to NBR. In place of butadiene, you have isoprene, acrylonitrile, isoprene, co-poly. Right. You have NR, BR, acrylonitrile, isoprene rubber, and you have a fourth component that forms the rubber is IM. IM is isobutylene, liquid isobutylene, right? You have 4 components, right? In the in one of the classes, I mentioned about the role of rubber components in achieving set of rubber properties after vulcanization, after you have made the product. Individual component and interactive. Interactive between the two, between the three. 3 is reasonable. Rubber, filler, oil, rubber, cross-linker, tackifier, rubber, filler, cross-linker. So that kind of interaction. Here we are looking at 4 components. 3 solid rubber and 1 liquid process aid. So it is a reactive process aid. So the isobutylene, what does it do? As we see, look at the properties. These 2 are essential properties. One is the resistance to repeated loading, that is the fatigue, and another one is the balancing viscous property and the solid property or the elastic. That is in terms of the tangent delta. So tangent delta, what does it suggest you? It describes the balance between deformability, and deformability is a viscous. And recovery from the deformation, solid character, that is the elastic. Right? And this duality is necessary. Right? And this duality is all about the rubber. Right? So you cannot separate a rubber inner from the duality. It is deformable and it is also dimensionally stable. Both are necessary. Look at the fatigue. For a repeated loading, how long it can stay? That is all about the fatigue length. That is given in the kilo cycle. Kilo cycle. So as we see from this, in addition to the ternary blender, the base polymer is ternary. Ternary means binary 2 NR, PR, SBR, PR, CR, NBR, EPDM, silicone, and CR plus BR. So that kind of, depending on the end user, you have a lot of freedom. So long as the co-curability is retained, very important. Co-curable, right? Co-curability, cross-linking should happen. So preparing blend is one thing, and fixing the blend through cross-linking, that is also necessary. So what is that we are discussing here? The ternary blender containing the 4th reactive plasticizer. IN is the liquid isobutylene reactive plasticizer. Okay, you have look at another. Look at the table 2. This NR bromobutyl. You must have studied bromobutyl. Is commercially important halobutyl. So it finds application in tire. So NR and bromobutyl. Look at the mechanical properties, tensile, shear, fatigue, and the tangent delta. They are getting influenced. right? What about other components of this blender that is described in the paragraph? Yes, M765 is SRF. SRF, semi-reinforcing furnace, stearic acid, and you have two protective agents. One is a antioxidant, another one is the anti-ozone. And age-right resin is, you will see, age-right resin is antioxidant. Anthracite is a anti-ozone. And you have process oil. Butrex 419 is a process oil. Zinc oxide. You have a sulfonamide accelerator, 1.4 pHR. And you also have morpholine derivative of the sulfonamide, N-oxydiethylene benzothiazole sulfonamide 0.7. So you have combination of accelerator, right? And what is not listed is a sulfur. Sulfur is missing, right? Sulfur is missing. I assume sulfur quantity is 1.5 or 2 pHR. Make a note. Sulfur is missing. This is a research article. They simply cannot take chance. Sulfur is 1.5 to 2 pHR. So that forms the compound design, right? And this chemical structure is the Curite 18 oxydiethylene thiocarbonyl N-oxydiethylene sulfonamide. So this is a Curite 18 OTOS. OTOS. What is this? This is 6-ppd. 6-ppd anti-ozone. And okay, you have a unsymmetrically substituted paraphenylene diamine. You have in the para position, you have diamines unsymmetric substituted. Why unsymmetric? One substituent is benzene, another is the six-membered chain. Okay, six-membered chain. 6-ppd. What is its function? It is an anti-ozone. And in the order of addition, some of this anti-degradants, they can make the rubber. They can make the rubber pure active. What does it mean? They can promote scorchiness. This anti-degradant, they can make the compound scorchy. Right? So some industry, what they do is, even though these additives are meant to promote age resistance of the rubber, they are not added in the beginning. They are added along with the accelerator. You follow? Along with the accelerator. I repeat. when we choose the anti-ozonant or in general anti-degradant, its function should be in the long run. That is in terms of the performance, sustaining the rubberiness in the long run. That is what we understand as the performance. All right. To realize the performance, what do? You choose the right anti-degradants. And importantly, ozone is a problem for rubber, hydrocarbon rubber containing unsaturation. Okay. In order to protect the unsaturation so that the rubber is able to maintain its large recoverable wafer function. Okay. During the choice of anti-degradant is one thing, and the order of addition. If you follow the conventional order of addition, we may end up with the poor Scotch tape. So some industry, what they do is the anti-ozonant added along with the sulfonamide accelerate. Another issue is, listen very carefully. The peptizer we said is added in the internal mixer. The peptizer activity comes to halt the moment I add the anti-ozonant. What does it mean? They are antagonistic. Peptizer and the anti-ozonant, the effect on the base polymer is antagonistic. They work against each other. Peptizer, what does it do? It causes the isolating the free radical that is generated. What the anti-ozonants do? They recombine the free radical. So that way, peptizer effect is almost removed. So that way also, you add the anti-ozonant along with the sulfonamide. Yes, so that is particularly in sulfonamide. Okay. So this is a 6-pp. What is the other resin, age-right resin? This is a typical anti-flux cracking agent. Listen very carefully. Anti-flux cracking agent, which is derived from quinoline. This is a quinoline structure. All right. TDQ or a TMQ is what you normally come across in the literature. So what is this TDQ? It is quinoline derivative. What it is? 2, 2 and 4 trimethyl and 1, 2. So the nitrogen site is 1 and the neighboring carbon is 2. 1, 2 dihydro, meaning it is hydrogenated. You hydrogenate selectively 1 and 2 position. As a result, right? As a result, this carbon will have 2 hydrogen atoms, right? You substitute the hydrogen by methyl group, 2 methyl group. Okay? So in the 4th position, there is a replaceable hydrogen. So that also you substitute with the methyl. All right, and that leaves behind an unsaturation. This unsaturation can polymerize like ethylene, propylene, like okay, ethylene, propylene. They can undergo catenation, polymerization will happen. Okay? So this TDQ is a polymerized to 2,2,4 trimethyl 1,2-dihydroquinone polymerized. And the extent of polymerization can be controlled. One can have a viscous fluid or a low melting solid. What is its role? Heat. It promotes. It helps in the heat resistance. 1 and 2. Anti-flux cracking, meaning flux cracking is postponed. Okay? So that way, TDQ and this PPD, paraphenylene diamine, they have a synergism. It's very important because why synergism? Right? Why synergism? Synergism is often invoked when we choose the protective agents. I type here synergism. Last Rachala. Idea. அவன் சொன்ன சைஸ் கொண்டுட்டியா? சேர்த்துருக்கான்னு பார்க்கணும். எனக்குன்னு சரி. Synergism, it applies to two accelerators like U1s and sulfonamide. Okay, pure accelerator, anti-degradants. Anti-degradants like PPDs, EDQ1 and EPD plus wax, paraffin wax. Paraffin wax is also available in MC wax, microcrystalline wax. Microcrystalline wax. So what they do? Synergism means 1 plus 1 is more than 2. Right? And this more than 2 is beneficial to the rubber compound in processing and on cross-linking. Synergism. You understand? So this synergism is between TDQ and 6-PPD. So there was a mention about this particular morpholine. This is a chemical structure, right? This is the chemical structure of a NOBS or a MBS, etc. Okay? Fine. And we just saw this is an example that describes the role of binary and the role of quaternary blend, meaning 4 components are involved. All right? Fine. So friends, we are going to look at certain formulations during the course of mixing, which forms a part of process. Wetting, distribution is coarser, dispersion is finer. Right? Dispersion is final. The last one, reaction and the interaction. We have discussed this individual reaction and interactively. Individual, A reacting with the rubber, B reacting with the rubber, C reacting with the rubber. Individual. This A, B, B, C, A, C, A, B, C, these two affecting. Okay? So you have an interact. Right. What are the factors that affect the wetting? We have discussed this in detail. Viscosity, shear rate, wetting, etc. In case of the mixing, you may study in detail in rubber processing, but part of completion, in number of cases, we do the mixing in stages, right? Very often it is a two-stage mixing. Two-stage mixing. The stage one, what we do, we prepare a master batch. In the stage two, we add the curatives. That is it. So prepare the master batch. What is the master batch? It contains all the ingredients except the cross linker. What are the cross linker? Sulfur plus accelerators plus inhibitors. If the inhibitor, if the formula contains inhibitor, okay. So this is a two-stage process. In some cases, three-stage, depending on the requirement, we do the. But this two-stage compounding is quite popular. Master batch and adding the cross-linker sulfur accelerator separately. Okay. So this two-pass mixing, when do we do? And our mixing is not only wetting and distribution, more than that. Pure activity. 1 and 2. Before we add the curatives, the master batch has to be filtered because the master batch may contain some undispersed filler particle, and when we make a film out of it, it may not come out smoothly. So this hard undispersed filler has to be separated. Okay. In such cases, the screening we cannot do it on a full mix because it may scotch, right? And in some cases, we may have to store the master batch for a longer duration. Yes, on storage, master batch, nothing happens. Transporting, these are all practical issues. You can visualize. And when we make a blend of rubber, so two-stage mixing is also practiced. Right. In contrast to the two-stage mixing, this particular table is a typical recipe of a single-stage mixing. Single-stage mixing. Why single-stage? Just look at the recipe. You yourself will make out this rubber compound will not create any problem in single-stage mixing, right? Just spend a little time in reading the composition. Take some water. Take some water. Cup.